if you ask me what I would want somebody to say if they were asked who Stephen Fletcher was, I would want them to say that Stephen Fletcher is a young man that has went through a lot, and even though people don't know his whole background, but even though he's went through a lot, he's come a long way, and more than anything, his father would be proud of him.
Merriam-Webster Dictionary says the definition of fortitude is strength of mind that enables a person to encounter danger or bear pain of adversity with courage. My definition of fortitude would be that of Stephen Leon Fletcher.
On that day, I had a game. I can remember I had a basketball game, and instead of going home, I lived about 10 miles outside of town. And instead of going home, since we had a home game, I went to a friend's house, and we sat there. It was kind of like a every home game thing. We kind of just went over to a friend's house and chilled before the game. Went back to the game before we had to play, and we were supposed to get some storms that night. And me and myself, I'd never been in a tornado warning, or let alone tornado watch at that. But I remember we was at a friend's house, just northeast of Lake Atkins.
Tuesday, February 5th, 2008. Stephen's life changed forever.
And then you're going to see very dark clouds down to your southwest as a very classic-looking thunderstorm now moves just towards the Atkins area.
We take you first to Atkins, where we have confirmed a report that at least 3 people were killed. This is a community that was definitely hit very hard by that powerful tornado today.
This moment, Atkins, y'all need to get down into your basements and your tornado shelters, because this thing could be having a rain-wrapped tornado just in the southwest of the city. So I cannot stress this enough. Atkins, get downstairs in your basements right now. Take your tornado safety precautions. Okay, what they're saying a possible funnel, right? Okay, we're getting a location. Okay, we have official funnel now being reported from a trained spotter. Okay, Atkins, get downstairs.
I can remember getting on my phone and calling friends that see where they were at, and I knew it was very serious, but I didn't think it was going to be detrimental to my family or my friends or anybody or to my town at that. And I remember calling my father and asking where he was at, and he told me where he was, and we had a dog named Spud, and I said, "Daddy, don't forget to get Spud." And he said, "I got him." And last words I told my father was, "I love him, and I'll see you later."
Okay, what they're saying a possible funnel, right? Okay, we're getting a location. Okay, we have official funnel now being reported from a trained spotter. Okay, Atkins, get downstairs. Okay, we have confirmed touchdowns now in the city of Atkins.
An EF4 tornado with winds in upwards of 200 miles an hour would touch down just east of Atkins at approximately 5 p.m. It would destroy 65 homes and damage another 39 more. The total track would be a record for Arkansas, as this tornado would travel 122 miles.
And it came through where I was raised, in a small community called Happy Bend, Arkansas. And it took family barn, ripped up the church I go to pretty good, and it also took the life of my late father.
In total, tornadoes claimed the lives of 14 Arkansans that night, 5 of those being from Atkins.
After I tried to call him a couple times and he didn't answer, that when they canceled the game that night, so I went over to my coach's house, and first responders came to his house and broke the news to me and my brother that they found my dad, and he had passed away.
I lost my husband. My boys lost their dad. We know he's gone on to a better place, but life will never be the same. It'll never be the same.
I lost my dad as a preteen. I got a lot of years, with him, but at the same time, I lost a lot of years with him. And there was a lot more that I could have learned from him. But at the same time, I learned a lot in the small amount of time that I had with him, from being, somewhat of a black sheep of your family because of the drinking habit that he had, and overcoming it and becoming a godly man. And
just through the small amount of time he had with his father, he was still able to garner many lessons.
Working sun up to sundown just to make sure your kids had everything they need. And me and my little brother, there's a lot of times that we had what we needed, my dad didn't have what he needed. He made sure we didn't go without. And that's one of the things that I've learned, to make sure my family, that's one thing that to this day, I will not let my family go without, no matter what. No matter what I gotta do, no matter how many hours I gotta put in here at the shop, no matter if I have to go mow lawns for a living or throw newspapers or, anything, make sure my family won't go without.
The values that Leon instilled in his son would go on to inspire him in his own parenting practices, to become a hard-working and respectable man, a patient father, and a thoughtful husband.
I met my wife in high school, and we now have 2 beautiful kids, and it's kind of, if you would have asked me 7 years ago if I was going to be married and have 2 kids and, be a part owner in a business, kind of in a way following my grandfather's footsteps, using my hands to make a living, I wouldn't have believed you.
I'm Fletcher, I'm Stephen's wife. Oddly enough, I feel like I always knew who Stephen was because he and my mom were close. She substituted at the school, and so she always knew who Stephen was. Whether he knew who I was is different.
Both Kayla and Stephen went to high school together. However, they didn't really meet until they connected on Facebook.
But oddly enough, my freshman year of college, Luke Duval was in and out of the hospital battling the swine flu, and so I had this idea to make a Facebook group called Prayers for People, and Stephen went in on it with me, and so it was a friendship that kind of started over Facebook, and then it just kind of like went from there to like texting and to talking more and talking on the phone, and then we ended up dating. So oddly enough, I guess you could say Facebook is how we met.
Kayla and Stephen were married January 29th of 2011.
Stephen is my best friend, and most people would be like, no, that's crazy, because Stephen and I bicker, because Stephen and I are a lot of the same person, although he would probably disagree with that. Stephen and I are both really hard-headed, and earlier I mentioned we talked about the hardships, and I think at the beginning of our marriage, that was probably what was hard for us. I had to learn, and he had to learn, when it was good to push the button and when it was good to just like pick your battles, because for me, when Stephen and I would argue or bicker, I wanted to talk, and I wanted to finish it then. And Stephen is better to just be left alone, and sometimes he just has to leave the situation. It took me a long time, way too long, to realize that, but once I finally did, I realized that that was what we needed. And for Stephen, Stephen and I have few friends that we've carried on from high school or that we've made, in the 6 years we've been together, but Stephen surpasses all of my friends. Stephen's who I laugh with. It might be laughing at him, or he might be laughing at me, but normally we laugh together. Stephen picks on me and he annoys me a lot of the time, but I can't imagine my life with anyone else. I never saw my life being here. I never saw myself having 2 kids and 2 college degrees and a husband who owned a business by the time I was 26. But they always say you plan and God laughs, and in our case, that's so true, because every time Stephen and I seem to make a plan about something, it always goes a completely different way. But for Stephen and I he is like my right hand, and I don't know what would happen if it was cut off.
Fast forward 6 years later, and 5-year-old Elisha is obsessed with all things superhero and loves every sport, while his 2-year-old sister Kennedy is happy being a sassy little dancer. They are the light of their parents' lives.
For me, I trust Stephen with every bit of our kids, in not just loving them, but the financial burdens that come with raising children. Stephen would do whatever it takes to make sure that we're always taken care of. And so it's very comforting, and I'm very thankful that Stephen is who he is.
Being a Fletcher, you know, it's if you ask any other Fletcher, it's a pride thing, and I don't mean that as I think I'm better than a PN or better than a Kendrick or better than a Marple or a Robertson. I'm not saying that Fletcher's a better name, because all in all, you know, a lot of people don't even know the name Fletcher here around here. But it's just, if you ask anybody that knew my grandfather, Cullen Fletcher, if they knew who he was, they knew that he was a God-given man, and you know, it don't matter what he had to do. If you needed help, he's gonna help you. You know, and that's what my family was known for, and that's what I want to keep doing. I want to be able to provide for my family, and you know, give more than what I take.
The tornado took a lot from him on that fateful day, and all that he had left was the remnants of what was once his home.
We kind of went through the rubble once we kind of got a hold of ourselves after the passing. We went through the rubble. We started reclaiming the lumber, started just selling the material, and then that turned into building harvest tables and doing custom work with not just wood, but anything that we can repurpose.
After such destruction, two brothers began to take form.
At the time, you know, it was just more of I'd say a coping mechanism. You know, it wasn't I had to do this to do that. It was this kept my mind off the tragedy that was going on and my brothers in my life. It was just something to do at the time.
Just like most kids, Stephen had other dreams of what he wanted to do.
Growing up, I, like any other kid, had hopes and dreams of being a police officer, firefighter, a monster truck driver. You know, I wanted to do it all. Growing up as a small child, really didn't know. Really didn't have, you know, a set guidelines or a set footsteps to follow. My grandfather was a carpenter, a very good handyman. He did it all from farming to carpentry to roofing, everything. He had, I think, 14 kids, so he had a pretty big family, and it's probably where the roots probably started, and they're in Happy Bend, Arkansas. As a kid, we grew up. Me and my brother and I, we grew up in separate homes. He was raised by his father, and I was raised by my mother and father. And it wasn't until later on, we always had a relationship, but it wasn't until later on, after the passing of my father, that we kind of reunited and connected and started kind of relying on each other. And now we're building a business off of the relationship that we have.
Unlike a lot of people his age, Stephen learned a quick lesson.
At I'd say a young age, at 22 years old or 20 years old, that I didn't need the education, you know, to make a living. You know, I may have a lot more sweat equity in what I do, but it's just as valuable educating myself and learning from other individuals that do what I do, work with their hands. It's just a valuable lesson learning from them as it is going to school and getting a degree.
One of the hardest parts of that is the amount of time you get to spend with your family.
Together, and especially after we first had kids, it was hard for me at first. You know, it was one of my downfalls because I didn't understand why it was okay with him to just be gone all the time and to be working so hard. I felt like he was doing it to be away from us, but that, you know, was a downfall of mine. And now I've come to understand that, like, it's not because he wants to be away from us. You know, he hates being away from me, and he really hates being away from the kids. But Stephen had nothing growing up. But even though he had nothing, Stephen's dad worked so hard to give him everything, even if it was just the food on the table that they had, you know, or the roof that they had over their heads. And Stephen, you know, lost his best friend, and he does a lot of what he does to make his dad proud, but it's more than that for him. You know, to be 25 years old and be a co-owner in a business, you know, and to have a family that we have, you know, if someone would have asked us when we were 18 and 19 if this is where we'd be today, I would tell them that they were crazy. But I wouldn't change my life for anything. And Stephen, he has dreams of what he wants the future to be like. I mean, it's endless for him. He doesn't, you know, and sometimes I'm like, aren't you ever going to be happy? Aren't you ever going to be satisfied? But he tells you he's happy, but that he just wants to push more and more. So for me, it's comforting to know that if God forbid something was to happen to me, that my children will be taken care of, because he wouldn't let them down. He's going to work as hard as he can to make sure they're provided for.
That effort he puts forth shows throughout all of his work.
And that's no different than what we do here. You know, we take something that nobody wants, nobody sees a use for, and even if they do see a use for it, they don't have time for it, or they don't even care about even doing anything with it. And here at Two Brothers, then when we take something that, you know, a piece of wood that nobody wants, we'll cut it up and make candlesticks out of it. You know, it pays the bills, but it's really not, in all, it ain't really about the money. You know, it's about, you know, somewhat making the world a better place, and reusing something that somebody doesn't want anything with, or it's going to burn, or, you know. So we take pride in what we do. Like I said, you know, more of a challenge. You know, what can you do with this? What can you not do with this? Oh, you don't think I can do that? Watch me. You know, that's kind of what we're about.
Two Brothers specializes in bringing rare, unusual, unique, and hard-to-find items that captivates the imagination of their customers.
Blueprint behind it. I mean, sometimes a customer will bring in a picture or a something that will get an inspiration to what they want, so we can kind of go off of it, and we'll work out the details as far as the stain and the texture and the dimensions of it. There's no blueprint. I wish there was. It'd make life a lot easier. But even if there was, working with reclaimed wood, you know, there's never no precise, you know, dimensions or precise cut. You kind of just have to slap it on there and tweak it when you get done with it.
Just like a lot of their projects, the business of Two Brothers itself had no specific blueprints for starting.
We've come a long way from what we done. When we started out, we was just your garage table builders, working out of the garage, and, you know, actually out in a carport, not even a garage. That's how we started out building tables. And now we're here in a big facility where we have a showroom, and we also have a workshop that you can go from the workshop to the showroom. So to say pride has anything to do with it, you know, it has a lot of pride. It has a lot of things that we do has a lot of pride and sweat and sometimes tears in it. You know, it takes a lot out of us. But at the end of the day, the love-hate relationship is worth it.
The relationship that they love goes with how their customers' eyes almost seem to light up as they walk through the door.
But, you know, people come in and they say, wow, this place is a lot bigger than what I anticipated. You know, you have a lot more things. It's kind of overwhelming, and people will come in, and every time they come in, they'll walk out the door and come right back in, and they see something different. You know, it's just, you know, Chris does a really good job of staging all of our stuff, and the way everybody can see everything on the floor.
The difference that customers tend to notice is the use of repurposing older items with such a significant sentimental value.
Your grandmother's old sewing machine, and you're not ever gonna get it redone and sew it. You take it to an embroiderer or a stitchist, and you get it redone yourself. You know, you're not gonna use your old, you know, foot pedal sewing machine. Okay, well, but you don't want to get rid of it. You know, it's sentimental. You know, so you bring it here and say, what can you do with it? You know, and we said, well, we can make you a coffee table out of it. We can make you a office desk out of it. You know, we can make a nightstand. You know, let's repurpose grandmother's sewing machine to something functional, something that you can use, something that will be something that you can pass down from generation to generation. You know, now it's not just a sewing machine. Now it's a desk. You know, it may not up the value of anything, but, you know, it's got more sentimental value than anything else.
Looking at some of the masterpieces they have produced, it's hard to think back of when they first started out.
And I always encouraged him to go do those things. He really liked doing it. But I honestly, if someone would have asked me if Two Brothers would be as big as it is now, not because I didn't believe it could be, but I just didn't see it going that far. And Steven's had a lot of people in his life who have told him that he would never become anything because he didn't have a college degree. And I always told him that college isn't for everyone, and that, you know, you can make your life however you want it to be, regardless of that. And he's proven that time and time again. And
through the many hardships in his life and the countless hours a week that he works, Steven is the very person that describes fortitude.
But I don't weep on my life. I'm actually proud of where I come from. I'm proud of what I had to go through to get where I am. It doesn't sadden me that I lost my father at a young age. You know, it made me be a man a lot younger than what I had to be, and I can very much appreciate that blessing.